Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking at the weekly metagame breakdown for the best decks up to Mythic rank for the timeless best of 3 format. We'll cover best of 1 as well as the other formats. You can check it out in the metagame breakdown playlist, so you get your weekly kind of show. For those who want to play in the standard metagame challenge, we also dropped a video for that for this weekend with the top decks there, so you can cover it from that avenue. So as always, we get the data from UntapGG, what you see on the screen, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates your win rates with other users, gives a whole bunch of cool stats that can be used. So we're going to look at popularity of the deck, just kind of the breakdown in terms of deck representation, and then we'll look at the corresponding win rates. I'll timestamp and paste all these deck lists in the video description so you can quickly pull from there. So looking at the popularity of today, at least, Diamond Mythic rank, Boros energy is up to 18%. Just as like kind of a compare for folks who haven't been keeping up with historic, if we look at this same, it's at 57%. So even higher in the historic format. At one point in Mythic, it was up to like 75% leading up into the qualifier plan. So we had that kind of come up. So Boros energy is both going to be the Lurrus and the Jegantha version that are lumped together. We have Mardu energy, which is basically an extension of the Boros deck. You'll see cards like Obnixis, Bowmaster in there, kind of a port to what modern players are doing right now. We have 4-color Show and Tell, Dimir Control, the Elementals deck, and then Rakdos Scam, just all wrapping it up. Question I was getting a couple of, like the Dimir Frog lists. Right now it's like 50%, so I'm not going to be featuring it in this video. If you really want a deck list, just let me know. I'll pull it up. But the stock kind of Dimir Control at Tameo, which we will cover today, is doing a little bit better than the frog version. So jumping in, we are going to look at 5,400 games worth of data over the last week, July 12th through to the 19th. And the highest win rate deck is actually a really, really sweet one. It is a Esper, Diviner, Discard, Reanimator kind of deck. So 22 games, 82% win rate. We have the Grief as well as Solitude package, so your Evoke Elementals. You have Ephemerate and Reanimate as ways to get it back, along with Unearth for your smaller things. You have the effects of Diviner Fate. So this is an alchemy card for those unfamiliar with it. So when it enters the battlefield, you connive. You get to draw a card and discard a card. And whenever you discard one or more cards, you seek a card that shares that card type with the card that you discarded. So if you discard a land, you get to seek a land at random. So basically a random land from your deck goes into your hand. And then this ability triggers only once per turn. Plays really nicely with the frog because you can basically discard, get the value from frog, but then draw a card from it as well. You have Saturo, which will draw a card if basically if you invoke an elemental or you reanimate, you get to draw a card from it as well, which is kind of cool. You have Teferi for protection, some Bowmasters, Witch Enchanter as just a flexible removal, and then Attrax as another reanimation target. One thing you can even look with this deck is playing some Trolls potentially, just a way to kind of cycle and get that. Sideboard, you got Fragment Reality and Swords Plowshare, just a bunch of cheap 1-mana removal. You have Bowmasters when they're heavy draw decks. You have Sun Cleanser in here, Boromir for the Show and Tell matchups, Lauren as just a disruption style effect. You could even play, if you want, things like Thoughtseize, or depending on how much you want to hate Show and Tell, the various kind of hate pieces, like the preventing them from playing multiple lands, the new artifact from Modern Horizons 3, it's skipping my brain right now, Deafening Silence. There's a whole bunch of cards you can play to kind of beat up on that deck, but opt in to go with that. But this one's a sweet one. I really like Diviner Fates. It's a fun card. Mardu Energy. So this is one of the energy style lists. We have 78% on this one. This one is a Lurrus build. There will be a Jegantha build, but you have Juggernaut Peddler as like a Thoughtseize effect that you get at a black, Cthulhian Nightmares Reanimation, as well as Orcish Bowmaster. You'll see the Ocelot Pride package that we're getting, Goblin Bombardment, which is kind of imported over from the historic version, very strong. Lets you flip a Johnny on command with all the various tokens, just deals a lot of damage over the course of the game. You get Swords Plowshare over the historic version. Obviously the fetch lines make the mana base a little bit more consistent as well. And then Amulet for some card advantage. Sideboard, Deafening Silence as a hate piece against like Show and Tell or any kind of Storm style deck, Fragment, Static Prison, Swords, just various removal, Nightmare for the grindier matchups, Flute for activated abilities, kind of a hate piece. You can flash it in, name Show and Tell, slow them down a couple turns, for example. Juggernaut Pillar for more Thoughtseize effects that are also a creature, and then a Licensor for graveyard hate. We then go to 4 colors Show and Tell, so nothing really updated from past weeks with this particular version of the build. We'll be looking at a Simic version later on that Ali Eldrazi has done really well with, 75% on this one here. This opting for the Veil's main, Thoughtseize, so really no removal main, just kind of protecting your combo. Basically what you're trying to do, Show and Tell into play Omniscience, and then you could either Trax it to help you find pieces, but the core kind of win is Mastermind's Acquisition for Approach the Second Sun, and then either find a way to put the Masterminds back with Mystic Sanctuary to tutor for the other copy, or just draw into it with any of your various card draw effects within the deck. This deck here has got Fatal Push in the sideboard as removal, Path to Peril. You have Leyline Sanctity as a way to protect from discard, Defense Grid against counter spells, just some more discard, Surgical for graveyard hate, Crossing Grip for the Mirror for Omniscience, and then your approach. You'll see a card in here in the mana base, Shifting Woodland, that can allow you to become a copy of Omniscience that's in your graveyard, so it's another backdoor way to kind of win via the Show and Tell route. Then move on to Dimir Control, 72%, and this version is still Lurrus, but we don't have the frogs in it. We just have the Bowmasters as well as Tamiyo, which is very easy to flip in this deck thanks to Brainstorm. Very powerful Planeswalker. When it flips, just pressuring your opponents, like reducing the attack power. You can recycle cards, and then you also, the ultimate just draws half your deck and get no minimum hand size. Mana drain, whole bunch of removal options in here. Path to Peril in the main to deal with some of the more aggressive decks. Opting to go with something like this over Toxic Deluge, which is kind of interesting just to see how that plays out. Notably no white source, so it's just being used for the cheaper effect. Sideboard, just various removal effects, things dying like with through sack effects. You do have the Toxic Delusion sideboard for a little bit bigger creature decks, but just various answers as appropriate for the opponent's deck. So with the control deck, you just want to kind of shift your answers to meet threats present. Your winning conditions are Orcish Bowmaster, Lurrus, and Bind to Secrecy, stealing something from your opponent's graveyard. Boros energy, 70%. So this is the Jegantha Flage version. So you have 4 Flage, 1 Fable the Mirror Breaker, still your Johnny's, Amtraptors, and Unstable Amulets. The Ragavans in here, along with Oscillate Sprites. Just a lot of value-add creatures. Monumental Henge, as well as Arena Glory, is utility lands in your mana base. Sideboard, Deafening Silence for the control, or like the Show and Tell style matchups. Blood Moon for greedy mana bases. Activated abilities, you have Needle, Swords for some more removal. Interesting that the main board, you're just relying on more of the energy producers. Post board, you only have access to Swords. Unlicensors for graveyard hate, and then Sun Cleanser for the energy mirrors. Then go to another Mardu energy variant. This is the Jegantha version. So you'll see Obnixilis and Flage. Plays really nicely with all the incidental tokens you make. You can make a token here, and then Oscillate's Pride can make a copy of the token. It helps you reach City's Blessing faster, so really cool kind of addition there. The other black cards are Bowmasters and Cthulhian Nightmare. You get Flage in this version as well, since you are up to a Jegantha build. Sideboard, you just have various removal options. You have Discard and Thoughtseize accessible. Your 4th copy of Flage in the Grandier matchups. Unlicensor, Sun Cleanser, Dampening Spear for kind of the control or big mana cheating style decks. We go to Jeskai Energy Control, so 69%. So this is another deck similar to the modern build. You have Brainstorm though instead of like Serum Visions. You have Mana Drain instead of Counterspell. Solitude's in here as a win condition and just a removal option. You're basically winning between that and Flage. Notably, no creature lands in the mana base, so that's your win condition. You have like Energy Producers and Wrath the Sky as removal, Sink and Stupor as a land, and a spell. Sideboard, just again with these control decks, situationally bringing in either more counters when needed, more removal. You have access to a couple more Evoke Elementals, and then Chandra for. Chandra's really nice against the heavier counterspell based decks, lets you just get an uncounterable threat that can keep ticking up. Moving on, we go to 4-color Belcher, 65%. So this deck here, I believe, could win on turn 1. So you Leyline of Sanctity on turn 1. You Dark Ritual into something that filters your mana. So you actually don't need Leyline. So if you Dark Ritual into any of the kind of chromatic effects, you would need 2 of them, however, because this comes to play tap. So you need Dark Ritual, 2 of the chromatic effects, and then your Belcher, Channel and Belcher. A lot of cards kind of moving on here. So basically what you would do is these would cycle themselves. You'd make green mana, you cast Belcher, or Channel. Channel makes you the requisite mana. You cast Belcher, activate Belcher. That's a very kind of magical Christmas land. Most of the time what you will be doing is having access to either Belcher in hand. Then you can beseech any of these effects, get Iron Crag Feet, gives you the requisite mana for Goblin Char Belcher, and then you win the game that way there. You have some protection effects, and then just some ramp to help you get ahead. And then things like Culling Ritual really good against the Boros decks, the small mana decks. It just allows you to kind of transfer all that extra mana into the Belcher itself. Your sideboard, just protection effects, Vexing Bauble versus Show and Tell, the other Leyline versus Heavy Discard, Force of Vigor for hate pieces, Culling Ritual, same thing, Brief for some additional discard as well. Then go to another sweet one. This is 4-color elementals, but not like elementals. We got Risen Reef, we got Voice of Resurgence in here. Bet that the Dimir deck really does not like Voice of Resurgence. But a cool thing, you have your Evoke elementals here. With Cabaretti Revels, you get to basically free cast one of these cheap ones. It kind of cascades into, in a way. Leyline Binding as removal. So you could basically draw your whole deck out with Risen Reef, play Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, win that way there. Or just Elemental Beatdowns. You have Ephemerate package as well. Remember with Ephemerate, with this trigger on the stack, you need to be in full control to be able to target it. Kahira Companion will also confuse your opponent, making them think, hey, this person is definitely on blue-white control or something, and then you bust out the elementals. Chalice for the kind of low mana decks, Deafening Sounds for Show and Tell, Test Talent for the control decks, Endurance for Graveyard Hate, Disputes, and Force of Vigors as Disruption. And then lastly, so this list comes from Ali Eldrazi. This is another player, I just found it from them, Commander Manix, 13 and 7. Ali was like 30 and single-digit losses. So this is a Show and Tell deck and kind of an Eldrazi deck in one. Shifting Woodlands kind of effects. You still have your Show and Tell package with the Fae of Wishes to tutor for it. You have the Ugin's Labyrinth in here that can pitch any of these larger Eldrazi's to get you mana. You also have one with the Multiverses, another kind of free spell effect. Shifting Woodlands can copy the same things that we mentioned previously. You could mill over it with like Seed of Hope, Malevolent Rumble, Traverse the Uvenwald as another way to kind of backdoor into the combo. One Rings, Ugin's Binding is a one-sided kind of Cyclonic Rift style effect. Fae of Wish package is Fae of Wishes for Mastermind's Acquisition, Mastermind's Acquisition for Mastermind's Acquisition, Mastermind's Acquisitions for Bond of Insight. Get back your 2 Mastermind's Acquisitions, your Mastermind Acquisition for Approach a Second Sun, and then you cast the Mastermind's Acquisition, get the other approach from your library. Other than that, pick your poison, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Defense Grid for heavy counterspells, Stone Brain for combo decks, Ugin's Binding is another bounce style effect, Ugin as a sweeper option. So that's it for the week. Let me know what you think, what you've been enjoying in the format, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.